All right, welcome everybody. We are here doing a great panel discussion amongst people, industries in the video game industry. I have myself, starting out, I'm Carl Varnado. I'm the Executive Director of Black and Gaming, and I'm honored to host this panel. And I'm gonna let my panelists introduce themselves. So to my immediate down is Chip Beaman. Chip, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm William Chip Beaman. I'm the CEO of the Halp Network. And we are co-hosting this event. I'm glad everyone was able to make it out here.
All right, and immediately to his left is Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn Nguyen Dewitt. I am an animation casting and voice director, as well as a musician and voice actor. Nice to meet you.
Amazing. Okay, and below her is Mela Lee.
Hi, I'm Mela Lee. I'm a voice actress for film and television and animation and games, and excited to be here. Feeling very fortunate.
All right, and the last person on our panel, but not the least by many means, is Gordon. Gordon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gordon Durity. I'm Executive Audio Director at Electronic Arts, purveyor of fine video games. So I oversee a large part of the portfolio, basically music, VO, tech, a whole bunch of different things.
Fantastic. All right, so let's just get into it. So this is a panel about a kind of non-traditional path into the game industry, right? Nobody here's a programmer. Nobody went to school to like study math. Like everybody here came from like the traditional entertainment industry kind of career path. So I want to talk about like how that path is open to other people. So let's start with Mela. Talk about your career path. How did you get into this industry? What happened? What did you do?
Well, I was doing disaster relief and ended up working in real estate investment banking and did a little bit of voiceover work on the side, ADR, voice matching, and occasional commercials. But I was headed to law school because who makes a living as a voice actress? That's not realistic. And it was as if I was the last person to know that this was going to be my full-time career, because I kept thinking it would not last, but I'll enjoy it. Okay, so I'm working full-time, but I'll do it for a couple of years until it fades out. And then it really didn't. And so going from glass ceilings that existed, but I was one of them, you know, what was possible. Because even 15 years ago, there wasn't the kind of diversity represented today. And so for someone of multiple cultural heritages, I just didn't see myself in the industry. But anyone who's listening, I've realized now, if you don't see it, it means that you're supposed to be it. There's room for you.
That's a great line. Gordon, is that how you felt you entered the industry? Because you entered the industry a long time ago.
Yes.
When did you?
I'm OG gaming. Yeah, I've been doing this for over 35 years now.
35 years. Did he freeze?
He did.
No,
He did.
35-year-old computer.
That's some great
computer's catching up.
We gotta update. EA got to update his computer. All right, Ashley. So was your experience different, similar to Mela?
Mela, yeah. I mean, like, yeah. If you don't see yourself, then you become, you become it. So I started off in this industry as an intern. In between my junior and senior years of college, I met with a voiceover casting director who came to my school to do a master class. And afterwards, I helped her to her car and I asked her if she needed any interns.
So I started off.
He's back.
He's back? Oh, no, he's gone.
Nope, not bad.
All right, continue.
Maybe come back. But yeah, so I asked her if she needed any interns for the summer because I didn't want to go home. And she said, yeah. And so I worked with them during the summer. And then when I graduated college, they hired me as like an associate while I was also a theater major and I was trying to do Shakespeare in Griffith Park and like go make money as a Shakespearean theater actress, which is lucrative in LA, but I kind of just worked my way through that and I hopped around different companies, ended up at DreamWorks, and from there just kind of expanded into the voiceover casting place. And now I'm freelance and I'm working for a bunch of different animation companies, and yeah, that's like a truncated.
There's actually rumors that learning Shakespeare helps you with science fiction dialogue, and in games. Like you look like a lot of Star Trek actors
Yeah.
from Shakespeare backgrounds because the dialogue's so hard to deliver. And so
Yeah.
Shakespeare prepares you for that dialogue.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely can see that.
Cool. All right, Chip. So you started this agency, Halp Network. Tell us how this happened. Like, how did you do this amazing thing?
Well, this came from a labor of love and several years in the industry. I mean, I started in 1995. I moved here from New York, and I was working in entertainment. I had an entertainment company that was kind of booking dancers and caterers for birthday parties and sweet 16s when I was living in New York. And I moved out here to be with my family. And I got out here and I didn't have a job. And my sister knew the manager of QA for the Walt Disney Company and set me up for an interview. And I remember I was out here for like 3 days and I got an interview and he said, all right, we've got a video game company here where I need somebody to work in our QA department. What games do you play? And I was like, Solitaire, Minesweeper. That's what I play. And he's like, okay, you start Monday. And I got a job as a QA tester a week later in 1995, and I made my way from QA to lead QA to associate producer to project manager. I left Disney after 9 years. I moved over to THQ, where I worked there for 3 years as a producer. I left THQ, went to a company called Sound Deluxe, which is a post-production audio facility out in Hollywood. And I was the voiceover manager there. And that's when I kind of moved over to the service side. And after almost 10 years there and 5 more years at the Formosa Interactive, I was heavily entrenched in voiceover and sound design and music. And one of the things that was happening was while I was there, people kept asking me, hey, do you know any writers? Do you know any artists? Do you know any of this? Do you know any of that? All the things that I was not doing as part of my core job, but I was helpful. So I would go out and find these people. And the next thing I knew, I had a roster of people that I could recommend to anybody. And my partner and I, Julia Bianco Scheffling, we started the Halp Network to do exactly that, to help people find work, to pair up companies like EA and Microsoft and Nintendo to all the freelancers, the professional freelancers out there who are looking for work. And we kind of focus on the industry. We focus our industry on looking for those people who are underrepresented. So we're trying to get to those people and say, you have opportunities within this field. Let me show you. Let me put you together with people who are hiring.
Amazing. So we've gotten Gordon back now.
I'm back, of course.
Right. Okay.
Isn't that classic? It's like so. Just a quick summary. Yeah. So I got in a long time ago, and I started in games really way back in the 8-bit days. Sort of was always interested in math and science and computing and music. But I went to music college and got into production, post-production for film, TV, composition. All at the same time, I got a degree in interactive music and media in university. And that really opened a lot of doors. And at that time, EA Canada was actually the company that became EA Canada. It was like a reverse takeover, started doing a lot of the big games in Vancouver, which is where I'm based. I knew that a lot of the people there, so I started in another games company. And when really the enticement to jump in full on came to me was during the PS2 days, where you could actually get CD quality audio, not just beeps and squeaks and that sort of stuff. Not that that stuff's bad, but it really opened a door and it got me super excited. So then I joined EA and I've been there for 23 years now, doing music, supervision, composition, the whole gamut, implementation, and now just, like I said, directing a lot of the audio for a lot of the titles.
Okay, so everybody here has been in the industry for a number of years and has like this wealth of experience. What is the, and I will listen for the whole panel, what is the hidden thing no one understands about video games that other industries have, right? So people have done stuff in done music and film, they've done music and television, they've done voiceover and television, they've done voiceover animation. What do video games have uniquely versus other industries? I'll go to the whole panel. What do you guys think? What's a unique thing about the video game industry?
I would say that this industry it's fairly open and friendly compared to some of the other cutthroat industries that are out there. You know, when you're talking about feature film or TV, we're a lot more welcoming in general to having ideas thrown back and forth and raising the bar. I mean, this industry moves faster than any other industry, right? We are faster in technology, we're faster in moving through having projects put out. I mean, it's just it's a light speed rail that we are on as we move through video games. At least that's the industry that I'm in for video games, not necessarily for TV or anything else. I think that those other industries are very ingrained in what they do, and we're a lot more open to changing things up and making things happen. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I could add on to that too, what I'm saying. You know, from seeing video games from little dots on the screen, literally Pong, all the way now to, you know, on PS5 or on high-end PCs, you know, things that look pretty much exactly like you would see a really well animated short or film or movie is amazing to me, because one of the interesting challenges with games is that it is an entertainment product and people expect to have that engrossing feeling, that engaging feeling. Interactive is really deep. You can get right into, you can become part of the fiction, part of the characters. From a development point of view, while that's the end goal, there's also the added, I wouldn't say hurdle, but the added, what I find is a unique challenge is that we're also making software. So there's all of the things that go into, apart from just making a great story, having great visuals, great sound, as you would in any sort of linear format like a movie or TV, we also have the added joy of making sure this stuff runs on software, which is always buggy, on top of machines that are, you know, quite contained, whether it's a console or PC. And it's nerve-wracking, it's exciting. As William said, you know, the technology that comes from games eventually moves into other industries.
Right.
We were doing some virtual set stuff with ILM many years ago on some Star Wars stuff they wanted to use for the film, and now I think they're using other engines and the game engines. So there's a lot of growth. The funnel is inverted for games, whereas in other industries it feels like it has contracted a bit. Games, it's the other way. You know, we can't get enough great people into the funnel.
Fantastic. All right. So my next question would be, so you all, in some capacity, match people with projects, right? Like, so I want to get in the industry. I want to be a talent in the video games or animation industries or film industries. How do you know who's good? How do you know I'm good enough to be into, and when I enter the studio and I want to be cast in something, what do I have to demonstrate for you to know they got it, they got the part? Can I just have some ideas about what that looks like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, as a casting director, I can probably hop in on that specifically.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, I'm in the business of listening, right? I don't ever really see anybody, and I mean, at this point, we don't see anybody in person. I haven't in the past couple of years, but when I'm listening in on an actor on an actor's audition, for me, the thing that jumps out is if it's different. If there's comedy, if there's a different interpretation to the sides, because generally, like, if I'm putting out auditions for a role, I'm getting hundreds of auditions of the same copy back. So to entice me would be to do something different. Give me something fun. Give me a different interpretation of what you would normally think a side would be. And also, like, I can hear whether or not you've read the information that you need to give me and to portray within that. So yeah, that's for me personally when I'm doing like voice auditions and stuff.
Do your homework, Ashley says. Do your homework.
I mean,
You gotta
read
show
what we
them.
give you. It
I know.
helps. So
Anybody
yeah.
else want to add to that?
And I'll add that maybe this is a little offbeat, but we're always looking for people who are experienced, and you're always looking for people who have, shipped games and all that kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is we're looking for someone who's energetic, who's got the right attitude, who's someone I'm willing to, to take a chance on. You don't have to be perfect. You have to have a willingness to want to be in this industry, to want to learn, to be a go-getter. And that, honestly, that's worth its weight in gold. If you have that kind of drive, you're going to be worth so much more to someone who I'm trying to place you with somebody. I'm trying to place you at a company, and they're going to want. I mean, I'm trying to get people off the idea that you have to have 1 million shipped games to be able to work at your company. That's this not true. You have to have the knowledge and the know-how, but you have to have that kind of attitude that, I want to be here. I can make something good for you. I can do something good for you. So if you've got that kind of energy, that's something that I'm looking for as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can add on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll ask one more question. Because something in this that's really interesting is, Mela, you've done characters that appeal to preschoolers, teens, adults, the whole kind of gambit. And I think sometimes people stigmatize like one role over another. Is there any differences in the industry as far as like roles and types of characters, or do you see it as all the same kind of job approach?
I think at its core, authenticity is important, like what moves you, because that's what's going to give the reading that Ashley's talking about is something a little different. I just did a show with, I'm just blanking now, I'm so sorry. Sings Frozen. Kristen Bell, I'm so sorry. But it was exciting because it's Michael Scharf was one of the co-writers, and there's this really wonderful environment. I was super nervous. Probably I'm like blanking out. I was like, oh my gosh. And the casting director came up to me and she says, I just want to let you know you were not what we were looking for. But I didn't know what they were looking for. I like to sing jazz, and it was a teacher, and her role in the series is that she helps people find their voice, their music. So I felt like, Maestro Moon, she would be someone who had a music to a voice, and she had this kind of, viv. And they said, we were looking for like a 3rd grade teacher, very white, very middle of the road. They kind of didn't think it was gonna be a character. It would be somebody who recapped the episode. But because I did it wrong, I got the role because that's what made it right. Does that make sense? So I think authenticity is important. But just like what Ashley says, not just reading the information, but when I'm mentoring, a lot of people think games are the games of their childhood, like in 2002, and they don't understand that it's the new filmmaking and it's 3-dimensional. And I had friends on Vikings that were like, how could we get into games? And they are professional combat artists, like they could do motion capture, but it meant they hadn't done the research. They didn't understand how deep the tech goes for interactive gaming. You have to understand animation and gaming and ADR, and there is a different rhythm and ebb and flow to audiobook. And what lights you up personally? Like, are you a gamer? Do you understand it? Are you a storyteller? Find that thing that lights you up, that's on your love list. And that's what I think you're going to excel at. But I find that some people are excited about the opportunity, but not very well versed in what the opportunity is, and not trying to be all things to all people, but finding what you're really good at. And you might be good at 6 or 7 things, but there's going to be 2 or 3 things that you really excel at, and that would transfer to the different mediums.
Just to hop on to what Mela said, authenticity is key. Yeah. Like, I really do believe in that, especially when I'm listening, like hearing an authentic voice, hearing an authentic take, like hearing someone's authentic comedy as opposed to what they think it maybe should be. Like I do greatly believe in that. So I appreciate you saying that as a performer. Super cool.
I wanted to piggyback off that a little bit and ask Gordon. So Gordon, Mela comes in, does the main interpretation of a character for your game. how does it affect what happens next in the process on your production side? Does that change the way it happens? What happens after that in production?
Yeah, what happens?
What happened? Well, voice, it's very interesting. I mean, voicing and creating a character that's like one of the holy grails of gaming, whether it's a sports game trying to represent, a real athlete, or whether it's a fictional character and you're building a story around them. So when you're casting, so you do your sides, you do your visualizations about what's this character meant to be. For instance, if you look at Apex Legends, right, we bring out a new character, and they come with all of their backstory. All of this stuff gets let up before it's even in the game. People are knowing how did this person get here? What's their powers? What's their tone? All of that, the voice of the character permeates throughout the entire production. So the artists, they'll listen to the voices and go, okay, it's got a certain tone, a certain flavor. How is that person going to be excited? How are they going to yell and bark and do the different things that you do in the interactive sequences? And then with the animators as well, because, you get the voice and you animate to the voice. So the cadence helps move the lip, drive the lip animation. The lip animation and the head motion is all tied into that execution, how the body moves. So a lot of it gets pegged off the actual, the voice and the delivery of the voice. Because as you know, when an actor speaks, it's not just a detached head. It's a full body thing. When Robert De Niro is delivering his lines, delivering a character in Taxi Driver, it's the tone that influences his action, that influences so much. So it's not divorced. And that's one thing I let people know. They think, well, maybe it's like jingle work or something where it's just this detached voice and then you add the stuff later. I said, no. It's core. It's throughout. And you can recast all the time as you do in film to capture the essence of the character. And as Mela was saying, it's not necessarily that production knows everything that they're looking for. A surprise comes in and all of a sudden it's like, that's it. We thought it was this, but it's actually this. And then that'll inform everything from, how the other characters interact, to the motion, to everything that goes into building that digital character.
The
Carl,
ability for
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chip. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's vital for the ability for that game designer or that producer to let go of their preconceived notion of what they were building from a year and a half ago before the voice actor showed up in the booth, and to allow that voice actor to really allow the character to come to life and get off of, 17 months ago when I thought of this game, I was like, oh, this character is going to be like this. And then let a voice actor kind of bring what they're there for. Voice acting is acting, right? It's to bring the character to life and the full embodiment, like you said. So that kind of the ability for that production to allow the actor to bring all of that forward, that's important.
I was going to say something like that, Carl, where what makes gaming different, or interactive gaming, is the extensive storytelling. It's not an hour and a half, it's 130 hours. And it's something that goes on with Apex Legends. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. And that I can see, having come into the industry, the profound change and effect that interactive gaming has had on our expectations of storytelling. Because of the hundreds of hours, the diversity isn't just the 8 crayons in the crayon box. It's 300, 4,000, 100,000 colors. How can we get it? And even in the audition process, as someone of multicultural background, I thought, for Apex Legends specifically, if you're looking for this particular trope, and when I got in, they're like, no, what's your background? And I'm Polynesian, Ethiopian, Creole, and Welsh. And they're like, well, she's mixed and she's from this background. And it was like my heart just kind of. So they said, we'd like to hear how you would do it. And, she listened to music all the time. And so I'm in the session, and now I see my character, doing these things, and there's pieces of you in it. And the importance of the overwhelming permeation of diversity that's come from games, the expectation of the storytelling and the players, you expect to ascend next to squad mates that are completely different than you, that have different skills, different value sets. And I think that's powerful that we are now in the first full generation from 2000 till now. We have a whole generation of people that expect to be side by side with warriors of every nation, tongue, and tribe, color, size. As a curvy woman who's kind of literally drawn like a graphic novel, I didn't see that representation that we see now in animation, and the Proud Family's coming out. And it was interesting to see all of these different shades of skin and different hair types. And I didn't grow up with that. And I feel like animation and gaming have a unique ability to shift the perception of what is beauty and what is your friend, who's your neighbor. And it's been profound, I think, and not to be underestimated.
That's interesting because, and so gaming has a lot more hours of content time to fill, right? And sometimes studios don't even realize, like, part of that fulfillment can come from diversifying the cast, right? Like if you have all this content time, then you could literally spend some of that time like making sure that everybody's represented in the game. It's not like a movie which has a very specific amount of time where they have to cover everything, right? You can really expand out the ideas and cast. So to your point, right? Like, why are we seeing, Chip, a new diversity season in gaming? Because I mean, we know that it's 2% African American in development. It's 3%, I think, Latino in development. Like, how are we seeing a new movement or not?
We are. I think we are, but it's the thing is, it's late and it's slow. So it's coming, and more and more game companies are seeing the need to actually diversify their games, their audience, their the characters and the stories. But it is long overdue. There are still many game companies that aren't doing that, and the ones that and I'm not going to name names, but there are some companies out there who think they are, they're performative. They're just doing what they think they want, the people are expecting them to do, and not really putting in the effort. But in comparison to where we were and what we were doing years ago, there is a difference. There is definitely better than it was. It's just a long way to go.
That leaves me like several different questions. I'm gonna try to go through them in the order I'm thinking about them. Okay, Ashley and Gordon, I have this difficult question for you. So, are you getting the type of projects where you are you have the ability to cast everybody, right? Because sometimes you get the Black project, right? Like, are you getting the kind of responsibility to get broadcasting, and then you make choices to make it more diverse? Or are they telling you are this ethnicity, so we expect you to put a Black audience, a Black cast together?
I'm muted. Hi. Yes. I mean, I'd say it's kind of a little bit of both. I would say in my casting and voice directing career, I'm one of the younger. I'm towards the beginning of when I'm starting to get more and more projects. And like Ada Twist Scientist was the first big project that I was given from Netflix and the Obama's company Higher Ground, and was given an opportunity to cast and voice direct that. And so, yes, it's based off of a book series, so there's a set amount of characters, but as we go deeper and as like the series expands, there are other like new diverse characters that'll show up. And I will say that yes, we have conversations about expanding that pool, just not making sure that there is more representation in terms of those characters. And so for casting, I do think that I'm beginning to be given that liberty, right, of pushing back and trying to be more specific in our diverse casting. I would say I direct a lot. I do a lot of voice directing, and I have been very pleasantly surprised with the amount of diversity that I've been given as in like actors and in shows that I am currently like voice directing. So and to your point, yes, I do get put on Black projects, but that is not the only thing that I am put on. I have been able to expand out of that. Like I'm currently voice directing Tiny Toons University for Warner Brothers, which is not. I mean, everyone's like an animal or a Looney Tune, so it's like not specific in that. So
I gotta ask a follow-up thing. Did you get to correct Cree Summers? Because she's the voice of Elmira.
I can't say. I can't confirm whether or I cannot confirm or deny. But I do love Cree Summer, and I have worked with her before, and like it's always a dream to work with her. So.
All right. Okay. Fantastic. Gordon, same question.
Yeah. So I don't actually get involved in the voice casting and stuff per se, but what I have noticed is, and I think William kind of alluded to it, is there has been a drastic change. Like when, back in the day, I was, working, I did 3.5 years with Def Jam and EA, working on the archetypical Def Jam hip hop wrestling fight game. It was an amazing thing. I met all the rappers, loved those games. There were 2 Black people on that game, myself and my buddy.
2. There were 2 Black people on the Def Jam game.
The 2 Def Jam, the Fight for New York and Vendetta. So you could imagine,
what?
Back in the day, you could imagine the scenario going in and working with the talent, working with, going to New York, working with Def Jam offices, looking at the content. The developers are great and so on, but as William can attest, there was nobody in the industry. It's like, I had to kind of go in there when BET came to do a little kind of, the developers, they went around and then they saw myself and my buddy in the studio and they're like, so, are you guys the only Black people on this game? I said, yes, welcome to Vancouver. But, but the thing is, there was respect for the content and so on, but those days have evolved. Not there yet. We need way more diversity in our developers. We do a lot of outreach. I do a lot of outreach, to people saying there's a lot of Black gamers, Latinx gamers on the consumption side, which is awesome. But I always try to tell people, do you want to go from a player to a maker? It's a hell of a lot of fun and quite profitable to make these games and drive that authenticity. And I think someone mentioned authenticity earlier. That is a critical thing. So with NEA, we've got these ERGs, groups that represent a diverse range from Latino, South Asian, Black, etc. And we are actively engaged in vetting content with the games, and vetting casting decisions, and vetting, architecture, storylines, just to make sure that things are diverse and they are authentic. Because back in the day, I can tell you, it was embarrassing when you hear a voice of a Puerto Rican woman, but they casted a Mexican, because all Latinx women are Mexican. It's like that's like saying a Scottish person has the same accent as a Texan. They don't. So those days, I believe, are done. I still see it popping up in other games. Like, wait a minute, there's not just one Latinx. So it's just it's a slow learn, but it is getting better. Yeah. And from a purely numbers point of view, the data is in. Diversifying your workforce, diversifying your content is a better business decision. The bottom line does expand.
So I got a difficult question though on top of that though, because all right, this is the other 2 panelists. But do you still have to be the best, right? Because we hear that it's diversifying, we hear that it's getting better, but you still have to be like extraordinary to get the job. Is that still true? Can you be a regular voice actor? Because I mean, clearly, Mela, you have extraordinary talent. Is that talent override prejudices about you?
No, I mean, I think it maybe does now. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have taken 20 years to be an overnight sensation. But, I can remember 10 years ago, an audition, and they're like, this is going to be perfect. Because usually it used to be where their idea of diversity was like, okay, so we need a crack whore. And you're just like, anything between British Queen and crack whore, like anything, and they would, I remember when I first got here, somebody said it was an AA read. And I said, Alcoholics Anonymous?
Oof.
And they were like, no, African American. I said, oh, from what city? They're like, urban. I was like, but from what city?
All
Like
the
my
same.
mother's English and my dad, but I still didn't quite understand the concept of, AA. And it was really, I'd be like, but what, from what city, what country? Like, I was confused. I didn't understand. They meant, oh, girl, like we all grew up. There was no recognition of blurs. And then a casting director came to me, and I ended up turning it down, but they said, we heard you, and there's something perfect for you. It's an octoroon, and that name, I was like, what? They're like, she's an octoroon, and I was like, uh-huh, and they're all princesses, and we're gonna add someone to this line, and I'm reading the lines, and it's like, one princess, her superpower is invisibility, the other time travel, the other one can be super strong, and my superpower was, I like to bake cakes. I can cook and clean real fast.
Oh my God.
That makes my heart just
this quiver.
What year was
and
it?
they had, and I remember I read it, and then I decided to, if I was going to read it, she was a princess, and I would make her a princess. And so I read it just like this, and I should have just walked out right away. And they said, yeah. Great. Do you have a more colorful read?
Oh, get out.
Dang.
And I said, I'll make her more energetic. And I did it, and you could tell, I was like, so like, great, how would you do it? And that's when I went full on British. Like, my mother was born in London, so I was like, well, I would do it like, and they were like, thank you so much. And the director, I was just like, they were trying to work it out, and they're like, well, we're gonna take a break and maybe rethink the character. And I was like, yeah, I took a break and I left. I should have probably just gone right away. And the director apologized, but it was this concept of diversity, and that's why it's so important to be mentoring and be available to our young people of color and older people of color. It's like diversity is everything, age, culture, the storytelling needs it all. It's just like when people are 20 and they're supposed to play a 50-year-old, and then all of a sudden they do this. You're like, yeah, no, we need diversity. And so when you don't have someone in development writing the stories, somehow they thought my superpower being cooking and cleaning was, that wouldn't happen now, but 10 years ago, they were like, is there a problem? Yeah.
You say what happened now, but I just thinking about it. It's Robert Townsend's Hollywood Shuffle came out in 1989, and your story sounds like a skit from that movie, which is like 30 plus years ago, like almost 40 years ago. So like, maybe we're just like in the golden age of diversity. But if you come back,
I think things have changed a lot, and I've got to shout out to EA, NetherRealm, some of the companies I've worked with, because they ask, and a profound example of diversity being very lucrative. I think EA and Apex Legends really set the bar a little bit higher to what else we could do, and Gordon, you can speak to that, but it has been a profound, I'm going to get all teary-eyed, to have, from a mixed family, to be able to represent people that look like me, but also playing Princess Xanda in Black Panther's Quest, or having a Polynesian African in Jade from Mortal Kombat. Like, I get to represent what my cousins look like and what my family looks like, and not be stuck in this kind of gray area where I don't really exist. And so it's really powerful to hear fans reflect that back to me as well.
Yeah, Mela, what you said definitely speaks to me, and the reason why I'm in the position that I am in right now is that, like, when I was 20, a decade ago, when I was like starting in this industry, realizing that there weren't really many people of color in above the line positions, and especially in animation, especially in casting and directing, and being in a room as an assistant where they're giving can we try a little bit more urban, or what if we use this is a slang phrase that this person would use, why don't you just do that? And being there, sitting there, being like, that's kind of racist, right? And realizing that I wanted to be the person giving direction in a way to an actor that mirrors myself, or having the experience of the content that I am directing, and being able to relate to an actor in that way, as opposed to just kind of phoning it in, or what I think this would be, and like finding those authentic moments in acting, and stuff, and just like how frustrating it is. And like that is literally why I was like, I want to be in casting. I want to be in voice directing, so that that actor feels comfortable with me in those moments, and sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on you, Carl,
No,
but that got me
please.
heated. That got me heated.
Yes.
Step in. Get passionate. Okay, so Chip, on your end then, so when you're in kind of the advocacy role for like getting people into jobs, are they coming to you to studio and saying, hey, we just want you to cast for the best role? Are they saying, hey, it's the ethnic cast, find some ethnicity for us, find a Black person? Or are they saying like, what's happening on your end on the agency level?
So it's a little bit of both. I would say that there are certain companies that are out there are asking us to make sure that we're casting a diverse cast. But for the ones that aren't, Julia Bianco, who I mentioned is my partner and is also our casting director, she's an advocate. I mean, she listens to what you ask for, and then she gives you a better cast. She's looking out for, finding underrepresented people. She's looking at ethnicities and identities and how people identify themselves, and trying to bring in as many people as we possibly can to give people an opportunity. So it's not always about the company asking for a diverse cast. It's about us presenting a diverse cast. It's more about us, taking the initiative. And I think that's what I was alluding to earlier about those people those companies that, like EA, that have divisions, DEI divisions within their company that are looking to make sure that the content that they're putting out is diverse and inclusive. But you also have to have those same people looking within your own company and saying, who are the content creators? Who are the artists? Who are the writers? Who are the game designers? Who are the producers? It's not just about the cast. It's not just about the writer. It's everybody else who's working for that company, and making sure that those people have a voice. And when for our company, we're trying to make sure that we're not just getting you the right cast, but we're trying to recruit for your accounting department. We want to make sure all of those people have an opportunity. So I forgot your question.
You answered it. The question for the audience was, are you seeing on the agency side this approach toward diversity, right? So
it's a little bit, like I said, it's a little bit of both. But do you mind if I go back for just a quick second? I want to ask Gordon a very quick question. In preparing for today's talk, I just happened to be thinking about all the people that I've worked with in my 20 plus years in the industry. And Gordon, I know you've got a couple more years on me in the industry. I started thinking about how many people of color I actually worked with over the course of 25 years in 7 different companies. And I was able to count them, which was a problem. Mm-hmm. The fact that I could come up with a number and it wasn't that difficult, that was interesting to me. And I heard you say earlier that you were working with Def Jam and you knew that was 2. In 35 years, how many people do you remember working with, do you, or can you?
Yeah, once again, you can count them. It's changed a lot, it's exponentially gotten better. But when you get into senior levels, the exec level, and you do executive offsites, and you're planning the strategy of a large company like EA, and you're sitting in a room, and you look around, it's like, it is me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
That guy's, I think he's East Indian, but it's hard to say. And, one time we actually doubled the representation because there were 2 of us out of 300. But, as far as representation for women, that's gotten a lot better. It has gotten a lot better, but, tacking on to what you say, exactly that is, it's a virtuous cycle. You get more diverse people in in critical roles, making critical decisions. It influences the content. It influences how, what gets made, who gets hired, critical decisions. The other thing too is there's an education for the gamer. And that's not an easy solve, and that's a longer slog. I mean, there are cliches and tropes that permeate, comics, et cetera, et cetera. Games, as you know, can be quite toxic. They're a very vocal group of people. Gamers are very passionate. And, we have caught flack at EA for pushing the diversity bar and gotten some backlash when we first put, Alex into the game, the face of FIFA for the actual fiction space. There was a lot of pushbacks. Like, why is this black guy representing the hero in FIFA for like 3 iterations of the game? And, and similar things like, why is this woman on the cover of Battlefield? And what's this other black dude? Was there black people in World War I and II? It's like, check your history. Oh yeah, there were, so that level of education, I think you have to be bold and brave, but you don't get there without having people, advocates as well as actual representation on the inside, making the games, making the stories, developing the actual content.
That's interesting because, right, like there's this identification problem of who's the fan, right? And there's there's a bunch of people that think that they're the only fans that matter, right? Their world viewpoint, their lens is the one that the studio or the company should cater to, right? We know that's not true. We know that especially in animation and science fiction and video games, that there's a diverse group of people who like the content, right? And so does that come into discussion in the directorial process, Ashley? Like, do you see like the creators worried about the fans when they're casting, or the kind of fans that they assume are watching it, or is that not really a big issue?
I mean, for the projects that I work on, it's mostly like who's the right actor for the role and who authentically represents. Like the fans will get there, for specifically for the projects that I work on, like in animation. I think that there is definitely a moment where they think of like, how do we want our production to be represented? How do we want the story to be told? For sure. But for the projects that I work on, it's just kind of like, this is what I believe. This is what I believe is authentic. This is who works best for this role within the authenticity that we're trying to convey. And I hope they like it, and I know that we've been talking about like having like people of color and like Black people in those like upper positions and like the executive roles and stuff. And I will say that I'm very lucky to have worked with like Black women as showrunners. I currently have 2 Black female showrunners that I'm working with right now, which I never thought was possible. And I will, a little anecdote is I was running callbacks for this young African-American girl role with one of my showrunners. And at the end of the callback, their mom found me on Instagram and messaged me and said, "Thank you so much for the opportunity for my daughter. I just wanted to say this is the first and only room that I've ever seen where there were women of color and Black women running the room, running the callbacks, making decisions, creative decisions. The first time that I've ever come across that, and this whole time that we've been trying to get into acting. And I just wanted to thank you and tell you that we appreciated being able to be represented and reflected, and for my daughter to see that herself in you as well. And so like that's a huge deal, and I feel like that's something that is being represented more as shows are being created. Authenticity, it's the word of the night.
Yes.
So.
Mela, okay, so you've been in a lot of rooms. Have you seen can you name the number of times you've seen African American women as the showrunners in your rooms?
Oh no. No, I'm not frozen. I'm stuck in time.
That's a big one. That's very good. Yeah.
Amazon, there was someone, a show creator, African-American, beautiful woman from Detroit, and it didn't reach the air, but I remember going, huh, yeah, oh, wow.
No.
Wow. I mean, because you don't notice until you start noticing. And just now we get to be in rooms together, like Zeno Robinson, Phil Lamar, and we're laughing because we're now like Phil Lamar and Cree Summer are like the patron saints of any person of color who thought it would be possible not only to be a voice actor and in the industry, but to have diverse roles. And I really appreciate what Ashley was saying is now it's the best person, because the goal of having more diversity and more opportunity isn't for us to resegregate. Because, you know, Robinson and I were talking, and it's like our desire isn't to like champion so that we can now, you know, be in the only section. I want to be able to be considered for a quantum physicist and math genius and you know, because I love math and I love quantum mechanics. So these are things that are pretty authentic to me, and I love neurodiversity and neuroplasticity, and I get all excited and geeky, and I was like, I'm looking for that. So I love that we're getting more diversity in the room, but diversity in the concept of who could play what. I mean, I remember when I was a little girl, Eddie Murphy did this movie, and it was called Boomerang, and everyone was kind of mad because it didn't really represent the Black experience. And I thought, so being wealthy, educated, in power, and see it, like we have the ability in games and animation not only to have authenticity in our representation, but the reality, or what reality could be. Like, let's alternate universe this. Why not? And that some roles, I love that Alexander, you know, Hamilton really kind of taught us that we can tell a profoundly authentic story, but the colors didn't really make the difference. The story stood. And so for us all to get to be beside each other and tell the story of the human experience that we all share, I look forward to that becoming more and more what we see in our diversity and our storytelling.
So with that said, okay, so you mentioned Apex Legends, and shout out to the because I think you have make a really good point about Cree Summer and Phil Lamar having diverse roles, right? Because we had Scatman Brothers, we had Earl Hyman in the '80s that did roles. They were the same role, like like you heard, you know exactly who Jazz was and Kung Fu, the same voice, like it. But now we've been able to diversify those kind of roles in a way that's really special. But I want to go to Gordon. Okay, so you talked about Apex Legends. Are we seeing now Black, I don't say studio heads, but Black game design directors of content? Are we seeing like the roles be so that they're full on? Let's go make make the showrunner Black. Let's make all of that Black. Is that we're seeing that or not really in the studios?
Yeah. So there has been a conscious effort at EA, and I'm sort of proud to represent in our internal Black employees DEI group, but all across the board from the CEO and down, COO, there is a conscious effort to diversify. And sometimes you have to push a little harder, to make things normalized. So we've been doing it for a number of years. It's getting normalized. So I've seen, when it comes to hiring, comes to, designers and so on, I've seen, the roles open up to more possibilities. I've seen the recruiting opening up to, areas that are not necessarily your Stanfords or your UCLAs and so on, but they're looking at places in Atlanta. They're looking at, a wide range of where the talent lives. And, for people listening as well, you think about games and you hear a lot of the technical stuff that goes into it. You should, of course, play games. It's like if you're in film, you should probably watch movies. So you should know about games and kind of how they put together. But there's a wide, I think William mentioned it, there's a wide range of roles, right? There's a wide range from accounting to legal to production. One of our senior producers on a very popular sports game, he has a degree in philosophy and religion. But what does that do for a game? He's not an engineer, but he knows how to put the elements together and tell a story. At the end of the day, we're storytelling. We're not shipping zeros and ones in code. We are, but on top of that is the story. So I am seeing through effort, this has not been sort of an organic things that have, through real effort, that there is a movement to look at diverse candidates, and there's a push to identify people, bring them in the interview process. And if all the elements are there, and there's no handouts, and everything is equal as far as skills and capability, let's hire the more diverse candidate, because we need to build that representation and build that muscle in the organization. And that is a conscious effort.
Chip, you want to weigh in today? Like you got some.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, if I can add to what Gordon was saying, was that it's that additional effort. It's that outreach. That's the part that's missing with some companies. It's, I was talking about being performative. There's this need for a company to feel and to say that they're doing the right thing. And then there's the people who are actually going out there and finding the communities, reaching out into the communities, and allowing those who are underrepresented to understand they have a role here, they have a place here, they can come here. It's not on the underrepresented to make way to you. It's on you to go out and seek them. And that is the issue that I'm seeing, and that's not quite been addressed. It's getting addressed. It's getting better. Companies like EA and Sony and a few others, I know that they're going out there and they're making the effort to go into the communities, like Gordon said, and find these people so that, and find good quality candidates. That's what my company's trying to do. But with other companies, they should come to me. I'm the company, I got the job. They should find their way to me. Well, that's just not happening. And that's where we need to make the change. That's where the fix needs to happen.
All right, we have some questions from the audience. This one's kind of hard, goes around the table, so get ready for this. Now, this does not mean that they make the game, so don't think that they're asking you developmental questions. Asking, like, in your own experience, what setting from Black history, or what story from Black history would you like to see in either a cartoon or a video game? Which one would you like to see? All right, anybody want to go first?
I'll make it short. I'll make it really, really short, because I thought this was so interesting. But if anyone saw, I believe it was on Netflix, the Amend series that was hosted by Will Smith, talking about the 14th Amendment, just that entire history, talking about slavery and how the amendment came to be. I don't know how it would be a game, but I would absolutely love to see that story being told. And if for no other reason than it's unbelievably educational.
Who's next? Nobody?
I guess I can go. I don't mean to be controversial, but I have, both white relatives and Black relatives. And what's interesting is they're so similar in their experiences when it comes to abusive marriages, or kind of like this history of abuse and acceptance of abuse. And it's interesting that on a human level, even though they seem so different culturally, the things that they've experienced, alcoholism, drug abuse, physical violence, sexual abuse, it runs on both sides. I'd be really interested to see almost like a This Is Us kind of vibe of the different legs of my cultural history, or those of us that have multiple backgrounds. So it's be like, the Japanese side, the African side, the English side, and then how it's coming to meet, and it comes together in me, but how similar their struggles were to get to where we've ended up as an elevated person, or elevated people, where we've overcome some things. I think it's really powerful to see what's more alike in us than is different. And that underneath it, the human spirit, like, I understand the term biracial, but I really do believe we're the human race. And on a real core level, the connection I have felt with people across cultures when we're talking about the struggles of abuse, or that's my particular background, not that my only background, but some extreme abuse. There is a connection, and the thread is so deep. And we have so much more to give each other than not.
That's awesome. Mela, it's very similar to what I was saying because I'm also mixed. I'm half Vietnamese, half African American, and I would love to see content where there is like a biracial family, but it's not just black white. Just because that tends to be the standard. It's like black mom, white dad.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
you're right. I think it's beautiful because then we can see it's the same thing. Any blended family.
yeah.
And I think the blurred community has been really huge. Like when I was growing up, you feel like you're the only one, but now that we have internet and the world is a closer place, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many of us.
Yeah, no, like I would love to see more of like a love story like my parents, where it's like my mother's African American, my dad is Vietnamese. And like the closest I got to that growing up was Romeo Must Die. Like, that's how I used to explain, like, that's how I used to explain my parents to people. They're like, so you're half Asian? I was like, yeah, Romeo Must Die. It's like the aftermath. They actually like marry and like they're fine. But I would love to see more of like blended families in that, and not particularly abuse, but just kind of like the cultural difference and like how they make that work, and like just diving deep into like the prejudices that like Asian culture has against Black culture, and like how that like meets and stuff. I would love to see more things about that. Particularly, I would also love from like a history standpoint, and it's something that was touched on, I guess, this year in Lovecraft Country, which is like Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
I find that interesting. Such an interesting like historical moment.
Did you watch the Watchmen series on HBO?
I saw, yeah. So I saw some of, I know that they had something in there. I didn't actually get to see the entire series, but
it launches with that story. That's the beginning.
It
that's
does.
the very first scene.
I love.
And we were doing post-production on Lovecraft in June of 2020.
Ooh.
And the episodes were Emmett Till and then Tulsa Massacre back to back, and they knew, and everyone was of color, and they would give us breaks because it was such a heavy time, June, and it was profound to see that at least that was the first time that it was kind of being brought into generalized pop culture. The reality. So when I grew up, we didn't hear about all of that. And I think it's important to tell those stories. Absolutely.
It wasn't the only town it happened to. It happened like 10 to 12, 15 towns.
Yeah,
it was not the only one.
I would like to see an anime epic of that.
So interesting is that's exactly what I was going to say. I've been reading a lot about, Black towns that thrived after the Civil War and Reconstruction and that got wiped out, like basically, run out of town and built a lake on top of a town and Tulsa and so on. So I've been thinking, this from quite a while, it'd be great to do a fantasy extrapolation and say, what if those towns thrived? So it's like almost like a BioShock type of game where you go into this fiction space, but it's like, what if those towns, what if that Black Wall Street thrived, and what if Tulsa didn't happen? And then, take that as the core base, and then what does the world look like from that point? It's like the man in the
Cancer got cured in the 50s.
Yeah.
Like it's a completely different world.
A different world. It's like an alternative universe, but it's historical based.
Like a full Wakanda.
That town.
Gordon, I wrote a story about that. Instead of having it in a different interpretation, that they went to like Bermuda, and that's where the Bermuda Triangle is there, because like it's like a Wakanda kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
Like so because
Chip, are you writing this down?
Yeah, you do need to write it down.
Black trauma to me is very difficult to keep reinterpreting, right? Like I don't want to relive Black trauma over and over again. So I want to reimagine. I know that people died. I know they're gone.
Yeah.
I want to reimagine that something happened that I can take solace in. Like it's so hard to like keep reliving all the trauma. I mean, like I saw Rosewood once because I couldn't watch it more than once. It was so hard to like see that, to enjoy that as an entertainment value, right? Like there's certain things that we just need to like forgot. So my one would be Quinnizinga. I would want to see Quinnizinga in a Dynasty Warriors type thing where she's just defending. So if you know, she defended Angola from the Portuguese for like 25 years, and like just have her like continuously beat up Portuguese people throughout the whole game with her warriors. Like that would be to me a fun game to like I played Dynasty Wars at least just like for the 10th iteration of the same dynasties. I'd say that engine.
Yeah.
And put that into Africa in some respects. Yeah.
That's cool. I could see like
And
a Ghost of
that's a-
Tsushima type for the fantasy thing that you guys are talking about. But
Yeah.
Gordon, please have EA do that. I love the alternate universe. Like, what would happen? What kind of planet? Cross culture,
Exactly.
the difference that would happen if they were allowed to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
and also like the Anglicization, I'm just making up words at this point, but like of aliens and how aliens tend to be perceived like as more of like an Anglo type of thing, and like what different alien cultures would be like based off of like.
Well, like lots of alien culture stories are basically colonization stories retold again, right? So that's why they're Anglo, because the colonization history is Europe going to other countries, right? So like when you look at the interpretations over and over again, it's historical idea of Eurocentric ideas of, because no one else colonized. There's no other countries in the world that were like, hey, you know what, we're going to go to this land and just take it over. Like that's a central idea because of the way the Europe was laid out. Like it's not because they were evil, it's because they had very few resources of food, right? So they were trying to figure out how to get more food, right? Like, so like, but to go back, right? I think it's a really interesting like idea now to think about like how would we imagine Black stories or multicultural stories as if we would tell them versus reinterpreting the stories they have with Black faces, right, or multicultural faces, which is I think a lot of the argument right now is that, you know, I don't want to see Black Superman. Okay, cool. Okay, if Superman was Black, he'd be a different character anyway. Like he'd be a totally different character. Like, so how do we take this idea and extrapolate it out to say, okay, we're going to tell our stories. We're really going to interpret it differently, right? To take Gordon's idea, I would do civilization that way and do all of the errors, right? Like, okay, so what if they didn't find the African continent? What if they didn't discover America? What if they didn't have it all reinterpreted in an engine and then see what the world looks like at the end of that? You know, like that. So, you know, it's going even further, you know, like down history's path, right?
Cool.
Definitely.
All right. All right, last question, guys, because we've been here for an hour and a half, and people get a little tired. So, okay, so what is the one project this next year that you are super excited about, and want to tell everybody about what you're working on, and how can everybody reach you and follow you, whatever it is that they need to do to get in contact with you, if you're comfortable sharing that.
I can't tell everybody what the project's
about.
on.
I know, right?
Secret people. I love it. I love it to do that to people because they're like, I can, Carl, but I'm not going to do that. All right.
It goes back to your first question, because there are so many. That's the difference between, you know, TV and film and games.
That's true.
Games is ridiculously secretive, and TV and film, I know what's going out, you know, in 2025.
Oh, well, I think the games do too. Like I have an EA rep here. I can't say much, but I can tell you there will be another season and I will be in it, and I'm very happy about it.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Yes.
It's going to be deep. It's going to be deep. And Proud Family, I know that's not games, but it's coming out. And when you were asking me how many shows have I been on that I've had Black showrunners and creators, and it's been Proud Family, and then Black Panther's Quest, Marvel Avengers Black Panther's Quest. But it was interesting because I thought, and you guys thought I had frozen, but I was like, wow, it's just this many. And but I'm excited to have Proud Family come out. It's beautiful to see things reimagined on a much higher level. The guest stars are incredible, and it just reminds me how much sometimes we think we haven't come a long way. Yes, we have a long way to go, but there was Mariah Carey. That was it for mixed race. And you just didn't see that. And to see these new games and shows with different hair and different skin and different cultures. And it's just, we're all just our eyes are so big and excited. We're on Zoom, guys, like when we're recording, but we're like, oh my gosh, it's so funny. And this person's a guest star. And it's exciting to be in the mainstream and not to be set aside. It's amazing. I'm very excited about games and animation coming forward.
Yeah, I can jump in there. I can overtly say one. I think Jedi Fallen Order is going to be very cool.
I'm so excited.
JFO2, we call it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Respawn's going to crush that one like they did the last one. And there's a driving game that's coming back that's a favorite. And it's got a very interesting, dynamic, diverse cast, diverse story, not typical for this franchise, and an incredible art and design look. I'm excited to see, it's a challenging game. I'm excited to see that one hit its mark for sure.
Any cryptic answers you got, Angie?
I know, right?
I know.
Yeah, I mean, well, season 2 of Ada Twist came out recently on Netflix, so please check that out. We have it's a really fun cast. We've got like Taye Diggs and Susan Kelechi Watsons are playing parents, and it's just been a really just fun place to be. So that is out on Netflix. I'm currently working on Tiny Toons University, which will come out eventually. So definitely keep an eye out on that show, and then other NDA things that I'll eventually talk about. You can find me on social media, and that's where those announcements will be. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Ashley Nguyen Dewitt, Dewitt. And yeah, that's where I live. So yeah.
All right, Chip Beaman, final thoughts.
Well, I work with way too many companies to be able to talk about what I'm excited about, because I'll just make somebody else mad. So,
all of them.
But I'm excited about everything that's coming out from a bunch of games and a lot of stuff that we are working on that's NDA. But if you take a look at the Halp Network on, we have a Discord channel, we have a YouTube channel, we have a Instagram channel, we have a Facebook channel. And it's the Halp Network or Halp Academy, depending on if you're looking for education or some of the games that we're working on. That's where we do all of our announcements of the things that we're allowed to talk about. So that I'm excited about all of those. And I'm not going to name any names. And then as so far as me personally, I'm pure Chip Beaman, PURECHIPBEAMAN. And that's across Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. That's how you can reach me.
Mela, one last question for you. What is your favorite character to voice? Not your character overall, but your favorite to voice. What's your favorite?
Ooh, that's not fair. My Rito Saga, because I was, I was like the first Black leading anime actress, and I've gotten to play her for 12 years. And so I love that. Princess Xanda in Black Panther's Quest was really important. I just met my biological dad and got to share that with him. And it was really powerful to get to celebrate all of me. Probably controversial to say, but Lifeline. Like I used to do disaster relief, and my mother is an RN was in the military, and so there's so many parts of her before they even knew, like her lore and her backstory is very similar to my own. And I work with California firefighters and first responders, and have a real heart for the mental health issues facing our first responders and military. And I see that reflected in her, and she's a full person. And Lifeline has connected me to first responders and military professionals from all over the world. And it's been a profoundly beautiful experience for me to see a woman that looks just like my Nana, and just to feel represented. It's been really powerful, and I'm really grateful for that role, and not just the writers and EA, but for the fans who have been so supportive and connected. And it's been a big part of me understanding where I fit in the diversity conversation. Because before then I felt like I probably wasn't enough of anything to be anything. And Lifelines helped me to really be proud of all of me. And I'm just really grateful for that.
This has been a fantastic panel. I appreciate you guys coming out. Any interesting things you're doing for Black History Month that you want to shout out to the group real quick before we leave out? Any other panels you want to quickly give the point to, or we good?
Guys, I get to do some audiobooks. There's some really great, Kendra Jones has a great book on coming out. Look up On Rotation, Admissions, 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, New York Times bestselling author. These are beautiful Black authors. I've gotten to work on some great projects. Please support these beautiful, diverse projects. And High Mountain Court, which is going to be a 5-part series. And it's a beautiful fae series and beautiful Black fairies. And it's all these wonderful cultures being represented for all of my blurs out there. And my Critical Role and D&D people. This is your kind of book. Please go out and catch it.
Carl, you're muted. Carl.
I was for a second. Thank you guys for having this panel. It's fantastic. Thank you guys for coming to see the panel. Have a wonderful day and catch us in the next thing we do.
Hey, one thing I want to make sure that
Yes.
I want people to know that coming up on the 24th,
Mhm.
we're going to be doing the Halp Network is going to be hosting another panel. It's going to be not an industry panel, but it's going to be an actors panel. So I can't remember who all the people are, but again, check us out. And I believe it's going to be around 6 o'clock on the 24th. So, thank you, Han. She put it in the chat. I love it. Thank you so much. And yeah, this has been fantastic. Thank you guys for doing this for my company. I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping that we can do this again really soon.
Absolutely. It's been awesome. Good to meet everyone.
It's lovely to meet everybody.
Have a great day.
Have a good night.